There he is.
Yo, yo.
What's going
So
on?
another day in paradise. Um, I don't have a lot. Well, I have a couple meetings today. I did some yard work this morning, dude. I mowed and weeded it already this morning.
Yeah.
Um, Pulled some weeds, watered my garden. I got this is on my priorities. Talking to my homeboy, and right after this, I got another Zoom meeting with a coach kind of guy, and after that, just taking care of business all day here around the
Nice.
house. Yeah.
What's the weather like out there in Atlanta?
Sunny. It's 88 right now and it's noontime, so this is actually kind of cooler than it has been. We've been getting in the mid 90s. I think the heat index has been in the hundreds for like the
Yeah.
last week or so. And humidity's, it's Georgia. Humidity's pretty tough out here.
Yeah. We had I think it's pretty warm today. I think it's going to get up in the hundreds, kind of like normal. But and you were here for some of it just before the 4th of July. Like it's been an abnormally cool summer.
Yeah.
Especially around the 4th of July. Um so much so that just because of my political affiliations and religious affiliations and everything before. Like I was staunchly uh what would you say? I wholeheartedly disagreed with climate change and all that kind of stuff because like, that was just kind of the crowd that I was running with.
Right.
But now
You mocked
I
my children for having a gluten allergy. I mean, kind of low key you did.
no, well, no, that was intentional. I
Okay.
mean, that's
Okay.
like the weakest. That's the probably the weakest thing. So next to a peanut allergy.
Peanut
Uh,
allergy is the worst.
but still, like, I think I got to admit that there's something going on. Now, I don't know what it is, and I don't know what's causing it. And maybe it happens. Maybe it's just part of however old the Earth is. Maybe that's just a constant cycle. But
Yeah.
it seems strange. It's strange to me how the like tornadoes and things seem to have moved. Um, Weather patterns are changing. The seasons are changing, and like I'm not smart enough to have an opinion of why, but I am smart enough to say something's different.
Yeah. I'm I'm gonna slide this underneath my door to my children.
You should just post it on, like, just frame it and put it on the outside of your door.
It
Just
says
keep it there.
go away. Here, wait 1 second. Guys, I'm in the middle of recording. Please respect this. I'm gonna have to edit this out. Cash, go to your room till I get done. Take your switch and go to your room, shut the door. Okay, yeah, take the ball and your switch, go to your room and shut the door, please, until I'm done. No, I told you, I'm talking to Justin Crafton, and when I'm done, me and you can make a podcast, okay? Yeah. All right. Be quiet. I love you. Be quiet. Go away.
What are they beefing over?
It's just an ongoing, lifelong thing. They are a year and a half apart, and so they've grown up together. She's 7, she's 8, sorry, and he's 6. But they've lived their whole lives together. They will just literally walk up to each other and start hitting. They're just like, "Oh, it's clobbering time."
And does the other one generally like they're like, oh, okay, or are they like, bro, like, are they caught off guard? Is it you know what I'm saying?
There are two reactions that are uh always employed. It's one and or the other. It's screaming at the top of your lungs like you're being stabbed,
Okay.
or immediately start clobbering back, or a combination of those things.
Yeah, but one or both of those things is definitely going to happen.
Yes, yeah. It will turn into either an MMA fight, or you'll think that someone's getting stabbed. You're
Yeah.
like, oh man.
Who typically wins those MMA fights?
Well, so going by the rules, going by like points
Right.
scored, takedowns, punches
Yeah.
landed,
Like,
it
yeah,
would
yeah.
it would be Cassius.
Okay.
Um, Going by I think finishing moves and dirty tricks, really, it would be Aliana. One of the first things that she does, and no one taught her this. Uh, she'll just go right to the bathing suit area, right to his
Okay.
nads.
Okay.
Just like try to uppercut it. And it's pretty good technique,
It's a
but
great technique.
she'll like squat down, she'll dip her hips and even, come up with
Get
it,
some
like
force.
lock
Yeah,
that
man.
shoulder into place and battering ram it.
Yeah.
Uh but he's sick, so he's like, I don't feel anything there. What do you do?
That's funny. Kids are a lot of fun. I love it. But yeah, sometimes you're just like, just if you could just not do this, if you
Yeah.
could just like I was saying something about Silas the other day. Like, man, if you could just not do this thing, it would be so much easier. Like we would get along, like we wouldn't have this conflict. All you got to do is not be fill in
Yeah.
the blank or not do fill in the blank. But anyway,
I
go ahead.
do you feel weird saying that? Because like I say that, and I have said and done, I've done all of the parenting styles with Caleb because he was my first, and I was a child whenever he was born. I was 22 or 21 whenever he was born. 22. I was 22 when he was born. I've gone through all of the parenting styles, like spanking, yelling, timeout, I all the stuff. And now he's a young man, but he still has, he's a human and he's a 17-year-old, but he'll do stuff that upsets me, and I'll say like, man, if you weren't so blank, everything would be fine. You just have a problem doing this. And man, I'll say things like, I feel like you just don't learn. I feel like my words are just bouncing off your head, and I know I am causing lifelong issues that he's going to
Mm.
think about the rest of his life. He's going to see me and have like these self-worth issues. If he battles the same things that I do, he'll have these self-worth issues. And like, if he makes a stupid mistake, that ruins a weekend or ruins or whatever, he's going to hear my voice in his head going, if you weren't doing this, we'd
Yeah.
be just fine. And I say that, maybe I'm just projecting my own issues onto him, but I don't want when that stuff comes out of my mouth to him, I'm like, oh, you shouldn't say this. But in the heat of the moment, I can't control it. And I think it's the right thing to say. I think I'm being
Yeah.
measured whenever I do that.
I mean, sometimes though, like if they would just not do the thing,
Yeah.
then and I don't know. I try to choose my words carefully, especially when I'm talking to the kids or when I'm correcting them or whatever. But I do find that, man, like the kids specifically, if you just like, there's no reason to put your feet on somebody or to, smack somebody in the back or like just there's no if you would just not be behaving obnoxiously, um, then we would all be getting along better. Like
Uh-huh.
it's not a value. I'm not saying that you're not. It's not a worth issue. It's just you're being obnoxious. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the best way to convey that without kind of making a connect. Like it's not you. It's your behavior is the problem.
Man, I look gray like a zombie on my camera. Um, yeah, the real answer is there is no answer. There is no one size fits all. And you just have to go. I think just being a conscious parent is, I don't know. I say this kind of as judging the past parents, but it looks like being a conscious parent is a relatively new phenomena anyway. Like for most of, like if you listen to parents from our generation, like our parents and their
Yeah.
parents, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
kids were supposed to be seen and not heard. And I know that my mom locked me out of the house. Like during the summertime,
Yeah. I don't want to see or hear you.
yeah, I don't want to see or hear you. As a matter of fact, don't come home until the streetlights are on.
Yeah.
Some might call that neglect nowadays, but that was just parenting back then. It seems like, so what I'm saying is as long as you're thinking about it, I think you're making progress and you're doing good. Um and I'm talking to myself also. You're going to make mistakes and be willing and conscious enough later to have this conversation or just apologize
Yeah.
apologize to your kids. I've apologized to Caleb recently uh, about things that I know he's learned from me. Like, I know where you get this from, but believe me, it doesn't help. Like, I
Uh,
want I want to be the voice of experience and let you know this doesn't work out good.
yeah. Um, I had to apologize to my son the other day. Um, Probably, what is this, Friday? It would have been, I think, Wednesday night. We were playing pickleball, and I was getting so mad. Like I was mad. And so it was Silas and Margaret's boyfriend and me and Margaret playing against them. Now you have to understand, like all night, I was just like kind of casually playing because they're kids. They're not great.
Oh, I thought you were saying you were in talking smack mode because you getting that.
I'm getting there.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
so, and it's interesting you say that because that may be
I
part of
know
the
you.
problem. That may be part of the problem that I hadn't previously identified. Um, so we're playing, and I'm rotating teams because whoever's team I'm on wins, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. Well, Silas and Marcus' boyfriend were on the same team, and I was taking it easy. Well, they started winning, and they were being so obnoxious, like so obnoxious,
About
and
winning?
about everything. So they were saying that I was telling the score wrong. The ball would hit inside the court, and they'd be like, "I was out." And I'm like, "No, it wasn't." They're like, "It was up." And finally, it got to the point where I was like, "Fine, take the point. I don't care. Take the point." And then at one point, I tried to hit Silas so hard with the ball, like I was just like, bam, and I smashed it. Uh, and they were like, "Bro, did you try to hit him with the ball?" And I said, "No, I was just hitting the ball hard." And then they called me Unk, which annoys me. They're like, "Oh, Unk's getting in his feels. Are you getting in your feels, Unk?" And I was getting like I was getting more and more elevated. Now, another piece of this is my daughter. I love playing with my daughter. She's new to the sport. She's not great. She's great for, you know what I'm saying? She's great for her skill level or her experience level.
Sure.
Um, and so I would do a great hit, they'd hit it back, and then she would like hit it behind her, or she would do something, and I'm just like my frustration, my anger wasn't toward her, but she was causing us to lose, and I needed to win this game.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so, like at one point, now you also have to understand, I don't swear in front of my kids generally. Um, at one point, like I stopped counting the score because every time I said the score, they said it was wrong. So let's say that it's 5-5, right?
Uh-huh.
We score. I know that it's now 6-5. And I'll be like, "Hey, what's the score?" And they would say 6-5. I'm like, okay. And the very next point, like, "Hey, what's the score?" 7-5. Okay. Like I was trying to make a point that, hey, I'm not even gonna keep score. You guys keep score. And at some point I turned to my daughter and was like, "I don't give a fuck. Give him 14 points." Now you have to understand, I don't swear in front of my kids.
Yeah.
I was so mad. So then we ended up winning because I told my daughter, I was like, "They're not scoring another point." Well, they did end up scoring several more points, and we
Oh.
were tied at 14-14, and then we ended up winning 16-15. Well, after it was all said and done, my son was like, "Man, you really got in your feelings, didn't you?" And I was like, "You guys were being obnoxious." And they're like, "No, we weren't." I was like, "You're being assholes is what you're being." And then I was like, was like, man, I really went way too hard on this thing.
I
So I
I
had
as
to
I as
apologize afterwards.
I assume multiple times, but at what point did you, or maybe did you, were able to look at this from like the third party objective and say, dude, you're getting kind of carried away.
Uh, so it was between. I had run into somebody, a former client that I hope didn't overhear my conversation. I had run into there was a former client that was playing pickleball, and he had said, "Hey, before you leave, let's chat." So we're done playing. I've lost, and I wasn't like I lost my cool for sure, but I was calm in my delivery. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't yelling and screaming. I was just explaining why I was angry, and it's your fault because you're being an asshole.
Okay.
Um, so we had done all that. They had gone to the truck, they didn't seem upset. Well, I'm talking to this guy for probably 15 minutes, and while I'm talking to him, I'm like, man, that was I should be able to handle this better than I did. Like this is unacceptable. So as soon as I got to the car, I apologized and told him it was unacceptable and asked for forgiveness, all that kind of stuff. The reason
Oh
I
wow.
say that is I think that that might be more important than getting it right the first time because
Oh yeah.
we're all gonna there's gonna be times where we get it wrong. We're not always gonna get it right, but I think it's important to acknowledge when we got it wrong and
Yeah.
not even just say, "Hey, that was wrong," but will you forgive me? And they may even choose not to, and that's not on them. That's the consequences of my behavior.
I've talked about this before with thinking about religion, but I think it applies here too. The example that you set when you do that is like I say, I want to teach my kids how to think, not what to think.
Yeah,
Like I don't want them to think that I have it all figured out, but I want them to be willing to question everything. And I think that you showing your kids that you're willing to admit fault and ask for forgiveness is a better example than if you would have had perfect sportsmanship that entire
yeah,
game.
yeah, exactly. And I think the reason for that is because none of us are ever going to have perfect sportsmanship.
Right.
So we don't need to learn how to be perfect. We need to learn how to apologize and how to make things right after the fact when we inevitably mess up.
Yeah. And strive for like there's a bunch of different lessons in that, like your kid can think about passion for completing a task or about passion for competitiveness. And like, we kind of this modern era has I feel like has demonized all things masculine. And one of those things that they say is masculine, even though it's probably asexual, is competitiveness.
Yeah.
Like there's the everybody gets a trophy thing.
Yeah, but I think that and so in this conversation, in my apologies, they were like, yeah, we were just, we were just being competitive, whatever. I think there's a big difference between being competitive and trash talking and whatever else this was.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like 100%, I'm competitive. Like I do not want to lose,
Yeah.
but and I do talk trash sometimes. I don't know. It just seems different. Like it seems like what was so frustrating wasn't the competitive nature. It was the trash talking. It was just irritating to me. And I think maybe part of the reason is because like you all individually and collectively have gotten your ass whooped for the past hour, and now you're tied and you're going to talk trash to me.
Like, do you
Like
guys remember who's been running this court?
exactly. And
You guys forget?
so some of it was, I don't know, the whole thing was dumb.
Here, give me 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dave. Okay, Allie, you stay down here. You have to stay upstairs. Allie, you have to stop crying, baby. For real. Go put ice on. Go put ice on. Stay upstairs, please. Hey, Cap, stop. Stay upstairs, please. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Father of the year.
We're just a couple. We both we got this figured out, man.
Yeah, dude.
Come to us for dad advice.
Yeah, yeah. I should write a book. I think about writing a book lots of times, and I do write. I try to write every day, but I don't write every day. I'm just writing out my thoughts, just really
Yeah.
just journaling. Um, I think I get this idea all the time in my head. I'm like, dude, I could write a book. And then I, I don't know, whatever it is, the devil on my shoulder goes, what the fuck would you write a book about that people would want to read? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And just leave. Uh, yeah, parenting's hard. I wish it came with a book. I
Uh,
think it speaks to like everything that we've been talking about, and there's a balance in here, but there there's dogma of saying you have to do it this way. This is the way to, get to heaven. This is the way to get promoted. This is the way to be a good citizen. That's one extreme. And I guess the other extreme would be totally hands off. Like my kids will teach themselves how to read, or, actually deadbeat, abandon your kids, I guess would be the other extreme.
yeah. I mean, there is a philosophy of parenting that's like free range, like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. I don't know enough about that, but that doesn't appeal to me, but I don't know enough about that to really speak on it intelligently. Um, and then there's this big range of like being helicopter militant drill sergeant dad or parent and being deadbeat,
mhm.
abandoning your kids and just leaving them. There's this big wide spectrum in here. We are just navigating that as we go, and we're trying to make good people,
Right.
but we're also battling our own ego, and we're battling our beliefs, and we're figuring out if our at least I'm trying to figure out if these beliefs I had are actually valid. Are these really my beliefs, or are these someone else's beliefs that were pushed on me
Yeah.
that I've made part of my identity? So like with parenting, religion, the education system, whatever, our self-worth, how we go about our daily lives, our ikigai. I think that that applies kind of to all that.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy yesterday we had a training at work, and this guy is he's got a PhD in theology, and he just retired from one of the universities out here. And we were just kind of briefly chatting, and I overshared, which I tend to do. But in the conversation, I was telling him just how recently it struck me how arrogant it really is to think that at this moment in time, I know the answers
Yeah.
to whatever it is. Because the truth is that whether it's parenting or philosophy or psychology or religion or whatever it is, like these are all things that we've all been trying to figure out since the beginning of time. And everything that I think I know is based on my experience. And you've got a completely different experience. And so you're going to know, quote unquote, know things that are contrary to what I know. And so I can't say that this is the way because I don't even know where you're trying to get or where you've been, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for so much of my life, everything has kind of been black and white. Like this is how you parent. You
Uh,
spank your kids.
yeah.
That's just what I believed.
Sure.
But now having learned other things, I'm like, oh wow. Yeah, I was way off base.
Yeah.
So much so that now I don't really, it's kind of wishy-washy, but I don't really want to take a position on much anything. Like I don't
Uh,
know that I believe it. Like I believe very few things outside
yeah.
of those very few things. The the most I can get is I suspect. I
Yeah.
suspect this is true, or I suspect God is this or this, whatever. But I don't. I believe, this is taking a way left turn. I believe there's a God.
Right.
Outside of that, I don't have any. I don't have any beliefs or strong leanings toward, well,
Like you don't
he's a
know
personality. I
anything.
know. I believe there's a God. I suspect that he's intelligent. I suspect that he's a person. I don't even know if that. Um, I don't know, but the point
Yeah.
is that I think that we, even there, I just said think. I don't know. I
Well,
suspect.
and to even call God he, like I know
Yeah,
you're not putting that on him, but
yeah,
like I think we both have come to this idea of like he's bigger than any of that.
yeah,
Even I just said it, but it's just words that fit.
yeah.
It's just words that fit.
Which I think is I think that's part of the problem of how religion has got religion becomes what it is that we have to think of things in terms of what we know. So we know about relationships. Well, with relationships, you've got male or female, and so like it's just we create these categories, and I think that they become truth, even though they were never intended to be. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. I don't know that. Well,
I
this,
think there's this weird thing. I know what you're talking about. There's this weird thing, and I've seen it in politics recently too. But people have talked about it with religion all the time, and it's driven me crazy. But so like the idea of like an atheist, like one of these intellectual atheists, one of their biggest attacks, specifically on Christianity, but on all religion, has been like, so you think a snake gave a naked woman an apple? You know, I sent you a
yeah,
video
yeah,
recently that talked about this, but it's like, no, dude, it's bigger than that. And even now, like at this place that I happen to be right now, and I know you're right there with me, it's like, oh, it's all a metaphor. Like it's
yeah.
all there's deeper meanings to all of this. Like, especially when you go back, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything.
Right.
That so I know that about religion. I've seen that in politics recently. They're like, these guys want to kill all of your unborn babies. I'm like, I don't think it's that. I don't
Yeah.
think that is their intention. Um, like there's obviously this weird dichotomy, and that's the problem. That divides, and it definitely creates others, and I think it creates less thans in your mind. Where I mean, like, I know I had this thought. I would never say it out loud, and I don't even know if I put these words on it. But looking back, when I was a hardcore like Bible thumper, I'm talking about like in my late teens. I kind of thought I was better than everyone, or at least I thought that I had a better relationship with God than everyone.
Yeah.
The only people who had a relationship with God, maybe the pastor, and maybe like that's it. Like they don't understand. I'm constantly praying. I am thinking about scripture, and I'm the one. There, it creates this otherness in your mind, and I see it in politics, and I think I know I've said things like this, talking about political or social issues, that in a way there's some things that I still there's like single issue things that are still very important that are like that's a line I can't cross kind of thing with some of these social issues. But looking at it now, I'm like, there is no black and white on this. And like you're saying, I honestly don't even know how you really feel about it. Because there is even a thing with words.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if we know if we think of this like of door, like do we have the same concept of what door means?
Yeah.
And you really can't know that.
Well, and there are some things that maybe with the door, for example, we've got proof this is a door, but certainly anything that's spiritual or psychological or philosophical, like there's no way to know that when I say God or when I say faith or whatever, like we literally were our language itself is just so limited. Um, and I was going to mention this. There are billboards around town that like yes, they're I think what they're saying is true, but there are billboards around town that have a picture of a baby in
Mm-hmm.
a diaper, and the billboard says there's evidence of God's existence or something like God exists, whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, there is. But even to say God exists, what are we talking about? Who are we
Yeah.
talking about? Because God, and this the same, like I saw somebody on Facebook recently posted about taking the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
And when you say, God damn it, or whatever, like that's, you're taking the Lord's name in vain. But I'm like, well, God is a category, first off. God isn't the name. So for the billboard, for example, what are we saying exists? We're saying God, as in, like, you're saying that's a name, or that's a like a specific God, or are you saying any, like, there's some power somewhere? Because
Yeah.
if that's what you're saying, then yeah, I don't know that anybody disagrees with that. But I think what they're saying is the God we believe in,
Yes.
the God that has, this list of whatever, that's what exists. But I guess every time I see it, I'm just like, we need some clarity on that, because the name God, the word God, is way too broad
Yeah.
to just say there's evidence that God exists.
Do you do you think there can be law enforcement officers that that think like this? Like I don't like thinking back to when I was a cop, and I'd be interested to see what you think. When I was a cop, I had to think like there's line, there's statutes. If you meet the statute, this is the consequence. In my mind, it was pretty much any felony, you're gonna go to jail. Sorry, dude, my hands are tied. Any narcotic, you're going to jail. Sorry, dude, my hands are tied. Obviously DUI, DV, you're going to jail. Sorry, dude, my hands are tied. I had to have a black and white line on all these subjects in order to make that decision. And I do think you have to do that. You have to have that black and white line in your head on these subjects to be a safe and effective law enforcement officer. I don't know if I could do that job right now. And thinking about things the way that I think about them.
Well, I think
Like,
go ahead.
do you think you can be a conscious? Well, I know you can be but like, do you think you can be on this wavelength that we're talking about of like taking this big picture out? Do you think
Yeah.
you can do that and be an effective and safe cop, like a
Yeah.
beat cop?
And honestly, I did that for a lot of years before I was even where I am now. Um, I was actually thinking about this. I was thinking about this recently. Um, I had I had gone through a process where it just occurred to me how many situations, or the situation, how many things I'd been a part of that I needed to process and grieve that I hadn't.
Mm.
And in that, I thought of a scenario I had out at one of the West Kellogg hotels. And this was a number of years ago, so I couldn't quite remember the details, but I think the way it went, I think was I was working with another deputy. We were partnered up, and we found this probably mid-20s girl with heroin. As I'm talking, and this was before heroin really had made a big comeback, but I'm talking to her, and I decide this she does not need to go to jail. She does not need to be arrested. She needs to be at home with somebody that loves her, that take care of her, whatever. And so I called her mom, and her mom came and picked her up. So in that regard, like, I was thinking outside, like, kind of the narrow picture. Um, so her mom picked her up, and mom was crying because she's trying to do everything she can to get a hold of her girl, and to get her the help she needs, all this kind of stuff. And so I really felt like that was the right decision. Um, Maybe 2 weeks later, I had looked up in the city computer just to see what's, because I was still, even though I wanted to help her, I was still had a cop's perspective. And the fact is that if you get if you're using heroin, you're probably like, that's my job to find out where you got it, and
Yeah,
to dig deeper in the investigation. So I
that's
looked her
being a
up.
good cop.
Yeah, I looked her up, and I found that she had committed suicide about a week after I had taken her to her mom, or had her mom come pick her up.
Yeah.
And that was just one of those things that, um I don't
That's
know.
heavy. That's
Yeah,
heavy,
man,
dude.
real heavy. She hung herself,
I'm sorry.
but I think that that was the right decision. Like, she didn't need to go to jail. And I think that, there are lots of times when the black and white isn't, it's not black and white.
Yeah.
Like, you have to look deeper and outside of, now, granted, it was against policy. Um, and technically, yes, it was wrong, but I think that in reality, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So yes, I do think that I think you can be a good cop, um, and not be so black and white, or to be able to see the bigger picture. I don't think it happens very often. Um,
I think
I don't know that happens often at all.
right. Oh, dude, how many my first my first lieutenant, and I don't mind saying his name, I'm not going to. But anyway, my first
What
lieutenant,
shift?
third shift.
Okay.
Before you came back to third shift.
Oh, okay. Different guy
Yeah, different
than
guy.
us.
Yeah, different guy. Not the lieutenant you came there with, the one before him.
Yeah.
Um, my first night out, off of FTD, my first day, my first night out, I'd got this older woman, older than me. She was like in her late 40s, clearly strung out. Her life was in ruins. She had a shitbox Chevy truck that was filled to the top with, Burger King wrappers and clothes and magic markers and all beads,
All the things. Yeah.
all the things.
Chargers.
Yeah.
Never know when you might need this old charger.
Blank CDs, sleeves
Yeah,
with
yeah.
blank CDs. She was at a West Kellogg hotel, and I pulled her over for failing to signal to turn it in there, and she's just freaking out the whole time. And an off-duty cop that we both know, a WPD guy, detective slash canine handler, pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Um, Showed up there on his way home. He happened to be in uniform and saw me pulled over and showed up and backed me while he was off the clock. And he was like, "Hey, dude, look at that." And there's this big fat weed nugget in the ashtray, and I'm like, "Oh, perfect. Step out of the truck." And so hooked her up, gave her a ticket, went down the thing, did not take her to jail. I was like, I asked him, I was like, "What do I have to do in this?" And he was like, he can't. He was at a different agency, so there's like a different cultural perspective. But I ended up really respecting this dude later.
Yeah.
Um, but he was like, "Is it worth the paperwork? Do you think you're making a difference?" And this is my first day off of FTD, but I'm
Oh, wow.
also 32
Yeah.
so I'm not a spring chicken.
Yeah. You got some life experience too from
Yeah.
military.
And so I was like, "No, it's not." And he was like, like, "I'm not saying let her go, but I don't think it's worth, the paperwork and the trip to jail." And so I'm like, perfect. I think I wrote her a written warning and kicked her loose. Took that weed back to the squad room and immediately packaged it as evidence, showing off like, "Hey, dude, first day on my own." And this lieutenant was like, "Yeah, I got a rule. If you got any dope on you, you're going to jail." And even back then, I just remember thinking, "That's a rule for you?" And then I come to find out that's a pretty common
Yeah.
perception, especially at our old agency and in law enforcement in general.
Yeah.
Um,
But you know what? I I don't think that the people that took that, perspective, I really don't think that it was for the greater good. I think it was because dope was always, and I say dope, drugs, getting drugs was always like the cool thing. It was
yeah.
the sexy thing.
Hey, dude,
And
I loved it.
to be honest, like, I was really good at,
Yeah.
street level stuff. Sucked at highway, but I was really good at street level narcotics. And so a lot of people, um, wanted to emulate the things that I did and things that we did and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But a lot
There
of
were
people,
generations of that.
yeah, a lot of people had that attitude. If you got dope, you're going to jail. But I don't think it was because they wanted to make a difference. I think it was because they wanted a stat or they wanted to seem cool or they wanted to be on the Interwatch or whatever.
Yes. I was gonna say everyone that has that view, they all sucked at being cops. They were all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
parking lot cops or,
Yeah.
you know, the DUI cops, which I'm not gonna say sucks, but it's just a kind of cop. There's
Yeah.
the
It's a
speeding
traffic.
ticket
You
cop,
got a traffic cop. You got a,
a
you
DUI
know,
cop. And I say this as because I didn't pursue any of those things. I thought those guys were all nerds and they sucked.
me too.
They could not. I guarantee you, they could not ask for consent and get consent to search a smuggler's van on the highway, like a
Yep.
for real Sinaloa cartel smuggler. I guarantee you, they couldn't get consent. You know, I guarantee you, they couldn't get consent to search a West Kellogg hotel. I know because they tried all the time and they always were they'd go into the parking lots and run every tag, and if there wasn't
Yep.
an active warrant or a stolen vehicle, they'd just go to the next place. I'm like, well, you haven't even really
What are you
started
doing?
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not this is not homo things as
Which I
hotel
think,
motel.
I think goes to show that they weren't trying to do the job. They were trying to get the stat or they were trying to
Yes.
get their name on the Interwatch.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I guess we made a left turn when we were talking about being able to see maybe kind of like the forest through the trees or to see the bigger picture. And then
Yeah.
you asked if you could be a good, safe, and productive, effective cop by doing that. And I think those make the best cops.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Um, now, I don't know if we've talked about this. Maybe we have. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast. Is it with your current views on drugs and social issues? Like, do you feel regret for your previous views on drugs and different issues, and even not maybe not your views, but like taking people to jail,
Yeah.
potentially sending them to prison?
I don't. So I would. I'll go ahead and say that I don't feel guilt for performing my job. I do think law enforcement is even a sacred job that there has to be special people for. I think they're like the community guardians. You know, goes back to our tribal days. There's always been a community guardian, and you know, whatever. I think law enforcement's a sacred job, and I don't regret being part of that. What I regret is being jaded or almost because of the culture. And I don't think I know that they don't do this on purpose, but because of the suck it up culture and we're undermanned and we're the thin blue line and we don't need backup, we're county, we don't I don't call
Yeah.
for backup every, you know, and I adopted all of those things. um I was a jerk. I was a jerk to people. I regret the way that I treated the public. And I'm talking about pretty much specifically criminals. I regret the way that I talked to people that were lying to me. And, you know, they were kind of playing their part. Really, what they were doing is they were in an altered state of consciousness in strict survival mode. They thought they were running for their life.
Yeah.
Um,
That's an interesting perspective, by the way.
yeah.
I've never considered that
Well,
of
especially,
what was happening, what was real to them in their mind.
yes, especially high on meth and
Yeah.
or everything else. Like they are in a very altered state of consciousness, literally running for their life because if I make the wrong move, this cop might kill me. TV tells me all these cops want to kill me, and they have, you know, I I regret the way that I treated those people. Um, I regret the. I remember we can cut this out if you think maybe we should, but I remember I was flipping this lady in the DUI room of the jail. Got it all on camera and read her. I was just knocking it out, and I was trying to get this lady's dealer, and she was. I can't remember how it got to it, but I said, "You don't want to know the truth? I don't give a fuck about you. I give a fuck about the kid that's going to be buying drugs from your drug dealer. I don't care if you go to jail. I want you to think about these other kids that aren't as fucked up as you. You know, do you want them to get fucked? And this lady ended up giving me information on her drug dealer that I didn't do anything really productive with. But what an awful thing to say to a person.
Hmm.
And I kind of felt that at the time.
Yeah.
Like, you're almost a non-person. Like, I don't care about your thieving, doping, druggy ass. I want to go get the person who's putting this poison out. Like I was telling her, you're already done. You're already written off. You're no longer even human. Is now how I
Yeah.
hear those words that I said to that lady. Uh, I regret that. I,
Yeah.
I definitely regret that.
Well, and that's part of the culture too of um, people that want to be street dope cops, which
Yeah.
I think, and no offense to you, because you already you're saying that that wasn't the way to do it. Um, I saw so many young cops that they wanted to do the same thing we were doing, but they would treat people like shit. And a lot of times I really think that they thought that they were better than these people.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things I think that made me successful was kind of from the beginning, I had a perspective that, like, you're a decent person. You're just doing bad things. And if it wasn't for like if it wasn't for these drugs that you were hooked on, like, I know that you wouldn't be burglarizing houses. I know that you wouldn't be willing to lose your kids to the state. Like, I know that you're not a piece of shit. It's the drugs. And so that I think that had a lot to do with people being willing to talk to me just by being empathetic. But the point is that somewhere, somehow, a lot of cops got the idea that by talking shit and belittling people, that they were winning. And I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know. Well, I know because I've seen it. I've seen it with interdiction. So like I think I could have been, and I know because I did it enough, I would have been just fine shaking down South Seneca and South Broadway with all the other cool guys that were doing that, you know, and being that kind of street cop. I know I could have done that, but that honestly did not interest me at all. Like there was nothing. I felt like that was a giant second only to sitting in a parking lot or
Yeah.
right, you know, being a anyway, second only to sitting in a parking lot. I thought, but all the guys who shook down South Seneca and South Broadway, those were all my buds. I liked helping them out on their chases, and I liked doing it. So I've seen people emulate them, and then I know from interdiction because I had a level of success with highway interdiction that some of those same people who were trying to emulate them all of a sudden were asking for ride-alongs with me and were talking to me, and we went through the academy at the same time or maybe a year or two apart. Like, I'm not better than you, dude. And they're like, so deputy, how do you pack your car? Like, do you always do this? And I'm like that was so off-putting. I'm like, hey, don't try to kiss my ass. that
Right.
that doesn't go anywhere. But they picked up just the surface level things. And I feel like they had like this picture of a TV cop in their mind.
Yeah.
And so like I know people would come to me later on and complain. They're like, I haven't gotten any loads, but I'm doing front seat interviews just like you. I don't know why I'm not getting anything. Like, front seat interview is not the answer. Like, do you know why I'm
Right.
doing a front
Right.
seat interview? And
Yeah.
so obviously all of the deeper stuff was just totally missed on them. They would, I think that plus the TV version of a cop that they had, they would bring to look cool in front of me and to look cool in front of you and to look cool in front of the other people. They'd be like, I really told that meth head, you
Yeah.
know?
And that's perfect. That's a perfect example of, like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what do you gain by
Ugh.
tearing this person down that's already as low as they can get, or close to? But it
Everyone I'm
happens all
thinking
the
of is a
time.
detective or higher now. Everyone
Yeah.
that was on the street with me that did
And
that.
you know what? I'll bet you a lot of them still do it. I'll
Yeah.
bet you. I mean, hopefully, hopefully, maybe they've changed their ways. Um, but
And so
man,
this is
I hated that.
this is good, I think. So a different perspective on that is I did some of those same things, but not for the same reason. Uh, so I talked short, like I just told you, my biggest complaint or my biggest regret is how I talked to and treated people. Um, but I did not do it because I was trying to impress anyone.
Yeah.
I did not treat those people that way because I was trying to be better at I wasn't even trying to be a better cop in those situations. I was doing it because I was honestly like one of the worst times that I'm thinking about, in my career, my short-lived career. A day before or 2 days before, I had been on scene of the worst accident that I've ever been to, where that little boy was ran over. 2 days later, I came in because it's supposed to be my day off, but we were shorthanded, and so I volunteered to come in, and I talked to this woman. I know I didn't break any laws or anything, but it was this lady who did not want to talk to me, and I didn't want to be there, and I just talked to her like dirt.
Mm.
And man, I regret that.
Yeah.
I like to think that I'm a better person, but I did. So what I'm saying is, from perspective, there's multiple roads to that, to being a shitty cop, or
Hmm.
a cop that talks to the public in a
Hmm.
not nice, not professional way. There's multiple roads that lead there, not
Well,
just I'm trying to impress someone.
and to be real honest, probably a week before, it was real close to shortly before I went on FML and
Huh.
ultimately retired. I had an interaction with a lady walking in the middle of the right lane on 63rd, kind of out toward my place, and she was way strung out.
Yeah.
Um, and when I first turned my lights on, this was like 7 o'clock in the morning. It might have even been, I think it was on my way to squad meeting, so it was probably like 6 o'clock in the morning. Um, and she's just like, initially it was a welfare call. Like
Uh-huh.
it wasn't a call. It was a
Welfare
on
check.
scene, on view. I was like, oh, she's gonna get run over. So I'm trying to help her, and she's says something nasty, and I just immediately just lost my mind and started talking, a lot of the same things you were talking about, where I was just like, look, if you want to get run over, I don't give a shit, but you're
Yeah.
not going to do it here in the county because I've got better things to do. If you
Yeah.
want to get run over and be a
Yeah.
dumbass, then go do it. I don't care. And that was absolutely not true. And that's when I realized, oh man. And I think also that's about when I realized that I've got a lot of stuff that I need to work on, like therapy wise. Like I need to see a counselor,
Yeah.
because that was about the same time I found my face was twitching. Like my face would just randomly twitch. I was forgetting people's names. Like um, one of my best friends on the department, I was talking to him and I had to scroll through my phone to try to find my contacts so I could remember this guy's name. Like there were a lot of things going on, and that was kind of part of it. And I was like, man, I'm a mess right now.
Yeah.
And that honestly, I think probably had a lot to do with why I decided it was time to pursue a medical, because I was just, if I continued down that route, I I would have gotten probably in significant trouble, or I just would have become somebody I didn't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize this until afterwards, but you might agree. I was losing my effectiveness. Like I was what we would say, or maybe like you might have heard Jocko say this. I was losing my combat effectiveness by pushing when I shouldn't push,
Yeah, by being in
being
the red.
by being in the red.
Yeah,
You're not combat effective, and I was didn't know it then. It was brought to my attention. Some other people in the department had to bring it to my attention, where I was like, oh, I am not doing great right now.
yeah.
And like you, that's what led to my medical from the sheriff's office.
But at the same time, so even though that's becoming, and I think has within the past couple of years even more since we left. I think it's becoming more acceptable, and just mental health in general is becoming more of an awareness. But even with that, like, yeah, I know you're in the red, but guess what? We need someone to cover the hospital.
Yeah, guess
Uh,
what? We're still
and
shorthanded.
second shift is short, so one of you guys has to stay over 4 hours. And I'm sorry that you got your kid's game. Now, to be fair, I was always, as a supervisor, I always tried really hard. If somebody had a game they needed to go to or an event, like, do your family thing. Family comes first. But still, there are a lot of times where it's, yeah, I'm sorry, you got a game, you're going to miss it because we're shorthanded. And I know you're in the red. And I know, like, I hope that some of that isn't happening anymore, but I have a hunch that it probably happens all the time.
I think it's a part of the human condition, and yeah, that's just going to be part of the human condition is battling that, on your own way. But also, I still know people that work at the sheriff's office. The culture has not changed.
Yeah.
Definitely not internally. At least from the people that I talk to, who aren't even street cops anymore. They've all moved on to different positions. But it seems like there hasn't been a lot of drastic changes to that since we've left. So
Yeah.
maybe, yeah,
Well, that's why, even though if I'd have stayed, they got some pretty big raises. If
yeah,
I'd have
they
stayed, I'd be
did. They're
making a
making a lot
lot.
more money than we
I'd be
did,
making a lot more
son.
money, but I don't know that I'd be alive. Uh,
Oh,
like I would certainly not be healthy.
yeah,
I say healthy. I passed. I want to talk about this.
yeah.
I did pass out a couple times the other day, so I don't know that I'm the picture of health at the moment.
I was
What
gonna
is
say,
that?
dude, you're
What
losing
what
weight. What are you doing?
what is that you're eating?
Oh, nothing. I'm moving
Oh,
around my lemons in my lemon water so I can
gotcha.
get another little slurp.
Um, what am I
You been
eating?
working out?
Nothing. I'm eating nothing, and I'm working out as much as possible. It's a
Oh,
crazy. I found um, this magic pill, so to speak. I've lost 30 pounds in the past month.
okay. That's
and,
extreme.
and the way I was able to do it, you could do it too. I so probably like a month ago,
Uh-huh.
I I decided, and I've had
Were
this
you
thought
not
before.
happy with yourself? Why? Because it seems like that's a drastic step.
Um, I mean, I had
To a normal
gotten,
person, it's pretty drastic.
I don't know many of those.
Yeah.
Um, well, so first off, you have to understand that in anything I do, I just don't know how to do it reasonably. Like, it doesn't compute. Like, the only thing that I understand is if you're going to do it, go all the way. And so, like, my wife will be like, you don't have to go extreme. And I'm like, oh, I do actually. Okay. So about a month ago,
You go ham, as the kids say.
yes, I had decided I'm only going to eat when I'm really hungry. And the reason this even entered my consciousness is several years ago, Sarah and the kids had gone to New Jersey, with her family. Do what?
You sound like you said New Jersey.
New Jersey, New Jersey, um, with her family, and so I was home alone. And what I found is that there were days that I didn't eat. Like, I would
Yeah.
just go 2 or 3 days without eating, and it wasn't for any reason other than I wasn't really hungry, and I wasn't hungry enough to make a meal, and it wasn't because I was lazy. It was just I'm not that hungry. Um, So anyway, I decided I'm only going to eat when I'm hungry, and I lost some weight doing that. But the thing is I felt great. Like,
Yes.
I had
That's the
lost
thing.
I had lost weight. Mentally, I felt clear. Physically, I felt strong. I had energy. Up until that point, I'd been taking naps every single day from like 1:30 to 2:30, like an hour-ish nap.
Dude, you
Um,
just made me finish your thing. Something
uh,
just dawned on me for that.
so I was tired all the time, and I felt great. So then I thought, well, wait a second. I wonder how little I could eat, like how little could I consume and increase my exercise. And so I've been a runner for a while, and had started running again. Well, I was increasing my distance while
You're doing
decreasing
some
my,
miles.
yeah, well, not as many as I want and not as many as I'm going to do, but I bumped it up. So my miles were going up, my calories were going down. Um, And I'm just naturally bad at hydrating. Like I don't
Yeah.
like water. Um, so I drink coffee
So
all
you're
day.
giving your body nothing except
Nothing.
for
Get tough. Quit being a bitch.
uh-huh.
Like just man up.
Uh-huh.
And so I hadn't. I drink these. I have these little like 8 ounce water bottles that I wear on my hydration belt while I'm running. So that's basically all the water I'd been consuming. Otherwise, whatever water's in coffee or tea or Coke Zero. Well, it got to the point where I was trying to see how little I could consume.
Uh,
And then it got to the point where when I was hungry, I would go for a run instead.
okay.
And so this is what happened Wednesday is I had I wasn't able to run in the morning for my schedule was messed up. I got home at like 1 o'clock and I was really hungry, but I was like, nah, we're gonna run instead. So I get my hydration belt and all that, and I get loaded up, and it's hot. It's 90, 92 degrees, I think it was. Um, and I start my run. Everything's going great. I reach down for my water. That was like a mile and a little bit over, a little bit under a mile and a half in. I reached down for my water and I'm like, oh, dang, that one's empty. I reached for the other one. I'm like, dang, that one's empty too. I forgot to fill up my water bottles. And so I go just a little bit more and I decide,
So wait,
well,
wait, wait, wait. I didn't even think about this before. You were consciously going to drink that stale ass water that you left in there? If you had left any in it before?
no. So funny thing is I knew it was empty when I put it on. I just forgot to fill them up
Because
because
your
the
brain's not working.
it's entirely possible
Yeah.
because my brain hadn't been fed for the past month. It
And
was just like,
dehydrated and force fed sugars here and
yeah,
there. Yeah.
it was just working on whatever scraps it could find.
Yeah.
Um,
It was eating itself.
so the way this belt is, it's it's awkward. You have to put it on with the bottles either out or empty. Otherwise, it's just hard to manage. So I put it on and I just forgot to fill it up. So I turn around, get back home, whatever. I noticed that every time I get up, like I just have I've never passed out in my life, but I had the feeling that, oh man, I feel kind of dizzy, like I could pass out, but it
Yeah.
would go away. Um, and so I went, I went about my day, drank a Coke Zero, probably had another
Yeah.
coffee, mowed the yard. And my wife was like, hey, do you want to go get some frozen yogurt? And I was like, yeah, I'll go get some frozen
Froyo.
yogurt, get some froyo. Half price. No, it's not half price. It's on Wednesdays. They have like, you can fill your cup and it's a set price instead of normally like you pay by the weight. Um, so we go and we're chilling and we're having a great conversation. This is funny. This would be something that you would actually probably say. Um, as as we're there, I actually had her drive because I wasn't feeling quite right. Like I was still feeling just kind of foggy, like
So this is the first.
something's not.
Okay.
What say it again?
So this is the really the beginning of you noticing your symptoms is on the way
Yeah.
there.
No, so I started noticing my symptoms that afternoon every time I would stand up, but it would
Okay.
always go away. Well, now what I'm noticing is like I didn't feel dizzy. I just felt foggy. Like I felt like I shouldn't be driving. So I had her drive. Well, we're sitting outside and there's the most obnoxious group of people I've ever seen in my life. It was the strangest thing. It was two large families that had, and there must have been three families represented, but there were three teenage boys standing in this little circle, three moms standing in this circle, and three teenage daughters standing in this circle. And every one of them individually was the most obnoxious. Like they were just everything about them, from their slides they were wearing to the things they were talking about to how like everything was just obnoxious. And I came so close to saying out loud, what an obnoxious group of people. Like it was on my tongue. Somehow I didn't say it. I just whispered it to my wife, like, oh, wow, I just about said this. So anyway, we're talking. They end up leaving. And
I would have said that.
I know you would
And
have,
I would
but
have regretted it. I,
I don't even know how I didn't. Like it was on its way out and something kept it in.
or I would have said I would have looked around and like hopefully in passing caught eye contact with some people. And then I would have looked at my wife and out loud said, are you fucking kidding me?
That's exactly what I wanted to do. Um, but as I'm talking to my wife, I get super, super thirsty. Like I need a drink of water now, which I usually, whenever I'm eating ice cream or frozen yogurt, I like to have water. So I
Huh,
stood up and I
I don't
was
like
real
that.
sore. I was real sore. Like, so I stood up kind of like, oh, I should also say, I should also say that several days prior, I noticed that my urine was darker than it should be, darker than I prefer,
Yeah,
um,
probably brown.
ish.
Are you getting cramps?
I started to. I started getting cramps.
Yeah.
I started getting cramps in my. I think it was somewhere on my face that it was odd because I'd never had a cramp there. It
Huh.
was somewhere where you're like, oh, there's a muscle there. Um, didn't do anything about it. Just took note of it. Um, so I'm standing up real slow because man, my back and my legs and my hips are real sore and kind of crampy. I walk in and I made it halfway through the dining room to the water, and it's just like, whoa, this is something's happening. So I grab onto this chair. The next thing I remember is I'm on the ground. I didn't realize I was on the ground. I just open my eyes and I'm seeing a ceiling fan. And it took me a second to be like, what's going on here? I realized that I was on the ground
I've
and
changed axes.
like, what is going on? I I realized I'm on the ground, so I casually stand up and I don't know how long I had been out. It must not have been long because the two teenage employees, because these kids are like 15 or 16, like they don't know what to do with this scenario. Uh,
This old
I
dude just walked in and passed out.
and I still even now I wonder what they thought. Like, are they thinking I was like who knows? Um, but I stand up and I make eye contact with them, and they're kind of coming out of the kitchen into like the register area, and they're just looking at me. And I'm like, oh, sorry about that. And I walk outside.
Sorry about that.
I walk outside, and my wife is sitting on the
So she didn't
patio.
see the first one.
She didn't see it, but she heard it. She heard a big crash, and she didn't know what was going on. Uh, I make eye contact with her. The next thing I know, she's waking me up from a dream, and I don't know what I was dreaming about, but I remember distinctly that I had a dream in both scenarios. Um, and I'm looking up, and she's looking down at me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" Well, I don't know because I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And she explains to me what happened, and there are these two teenage girls come running from across the parking lot. They're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." About that time, one of the workers from the store came out to offer me a bottle of water. I'm like, could you use this? Um, but after that, every other than I had a big goose egg on the
Goose
back of my
egg?
head, and it still bleeds a little bit. I don't know if I should
Okay.
have got stitches or not. Um, but yeah, most of yesterday, I feel like I was pretty well concussed. Like I
Yeah.
felt kind of like not quite as sharp as I prefer to be. um, but all of that to say, I think I figured out like my whole goal was what's the limit,
Yeah.
and I think I figured out the limit.
You found it.
But the thing is now I'm not so sure because now I feel like I could continue with the same caloric intake as long as I increase the hydration.
Let me tell you something, dude.
Oh,
Uh,
can I just pause this for a second and
sure.
remind you of the time when I told you about 2 weeks ago of my plan, and I think you told me something like I could probably find it in a text message. Whatever you said, it was something to the effect of, "Yeah, dude, your brain needs food or your
Yeah.
brain needs calories." And I think you're a smart guy, and I really respect you. I look up to you. You've got a lot of wisdom.
Oh,
Not not regarding that. Like I was like, yeah, I appreciate it. You're wrong, but no problem.
okay.
Thanks, bro." And continued down my path of wherever I'm headed. But anyway, I do want to acknowledge the fact that you told me 2 weeks ago that I shouldn't do it,
Yeah.
and that I was going to be in
I
trouble.
I remember that in passing, but I remember thinking you are also one of the, not that we're doting on each other, but like when I was a cop, I told people you were my mentor. So like I want you to know it's reciprocal. I definitely look up to you. I remember I remember this in passing, you telling me your plan, and I remember thinking, oh, he's just not seeing this obvious thing that his brain needs food. It really needs carbohydrates, which we don't like talking about, which is weird because it runs so good in ketosis, and ketosis is when, so that's why you feel so good. It's a slippery path.
Yeah.
You've ketosis, when your body's in ketosis, it's in the process of eating these simple carbohydrates and these things because you put it there. It can get there in lots of different ways. But anyway, it makes your brain feel good when you're in ketosis. And it's also, you kind of are starving your body a little bit when you're in ketosis. So that's the slippery slope. But I remember thinking, like, oh, I'm just going to point this out to him. And he's a smart guy. He's going to be
We'll
like,
figure it
oh,
out.
oh, because I do that all the time. I'm like, oh, obviously I forgot about that. Thanks for
Yeah.
pointing that out. And so I kind of just wrote up, I'm like, oh, he forgot that he needs food. Silly him. I pointed
Yeah.
it out to him. And then what was it, two nights ago, like
Yeah.
we actually, I feel like there's just been a lot of life going on, and I haven't been able to catch up with you as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I need to talk to my buddy. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? And you're like, actually, I just passed out twice. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, hey dude, you probably need an IV.
Yeah.
And you're
But
like, I don't know.
yeah. And this is a weird thing, weird thing about me. Um, I obviously respect medical professionals. I got a lot of friends that are medical professionals, and um, I respect them. I'll go to the doctor when I need to.
Yeah.
Um, I was, even as out of it as I was so nervous that somebody was going to call an ambulance
Yeah.
because I didn't want the attention. I didn't want to make a commotion. I didn't want people to see me. I didn't need it. And I even thought about maybe I should just go to the hospital and get this checked out. And we were thinking that I needed stitches, but I was like, it's dumb. I'll
You know
just
why you
go.
weren't bleeding as much as you probably should have?
No, but I think I know what you're going to say.
Because you were dehydrated. You were
Yeah,
bone dry dehydrated.
that actually makes a
Because
lot of
that you
sense.
should bleed a lot from your head. Like little
Yeah,
nicks should cause a lot of blood because
yeah,
the blood brain barrier and blood is so thin there. It should bleed a lot. You
yeah.
probably didn't because you were dehydrated.
Saved my life.
Yes.
Dehydration saved my life, and it can help you
Uh
too.
I, I don't know if that's the spot to go to. I don't know if
Uh, and so right in line with my extreme tendencies. Yesterday, I was like, well, all I'm going to drink is water, Gatorade, and pickle juice. That's it. So I had my little gallon jug, um, and I did great. Today, I've got my gallon jug, but I've been drinking coffee, and I've probably had about that much of my water.
did you eat
Um,
anything?
have I eaten anything?
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
no,
well,
because I'm still not sure that I need the food. I think that I need the hydration.
well, it's worth it, I think, at this point, just to do a little research. Do
Just,
after you lose consciousness two times in a row and you figured it out and bleeding from your head, it might be worth to give it a goog. Give it a give it a little bit.
but the problem with that though is that the only people that are going to have an opinion are fucking nerds, and I don't need the opinion from the
Mm,
nerds. I want
mm,
you aside. Uh, I want to hear from the warriors. I want to hear from the David Goggins in the group. I want to hear
yeah.
from the survivalists because I know I actually I think I googled it after our conversation. How long can you go without eating? And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the answer is 40 days. So
Yeah.
I was like, bro, I ate a freaking hamburger last Friday.
Yeah. That's not how it
It's
works.
only been 5 days. I still got 35 days left. Um, yeah. So
Mm.
because the truth is, and in all seriousness,
Oh, here comes the truth.
yeah, here's the truth. Let me lay some truth on you.
Oh,
The
thank you.
truth is that most people, I think, pursue comfort.
Okay.
And I think most people want to be full. They want to blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I love comfort. Obviously, I love comfort. but I don't want that. Like I want to see, like I want to run farther than I can run. I
Yeah.
want to eat less than I can eat. I want to go
Mm,
farther than I can go.
okay.
Just because I'm not really interested in um,
Being normal
being
or
normal,
being status quo.
which which is kind of funny. I distinctly remember one of the PD canine handlers one time telling me, "You are the weirdest motherfucker I have
Yeah.
ever met." And
Yeah.
but it was in a like a friendly way. He was just
Yeah.
like, "You're so weird," and that's okay. Like I'm okay with that. I would
That's
rather be the
awesome,
weirdest person
actually.
you know than to be the most normal. Like
Yeah.
that's just not interesting to me.
You're the kind of
Um,
person that people remember the rest of their lives because
well,
of being weird. I'm saying like
yeah,
they'll
I
think
mean
of
these
like even if they forget your name or the situation, I'm like, that weird guy.
that do you remember that dude that tried to make his own boots? Do you do you remember that dude that just randomly quit eating and tried to see how long he could go?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's weird.
I
Uh,
don't say that as from a place of judgment. I also am a weirdo.
yeah, I think
Uh
that's why we get along so well.
yeah, for sure. I know I think we got about 10 minutes left, by the way.
Okay.
But um yeah, I know I don't know. I imagine, actually, this is kind of my ego. I even kind of fantasize that there's still people at the sheriff's office that will be like, hey, remember that time Blackwood chased that dude through the fence, through two
Yeah,
fences? There's
that's
actually
me.
three fences.
That's actually me. That whenever you get that thought, it's because I'm telling somebody else about
Oh,
like, dude,
really?
yeah, I had this one guy.
That makes it that makes
We
me
called him Two
smile.
Keys,
Two Keys was my favorite.
Kool
You
Aid Man.
started calling me Kool-Aid for a while because I would bust through the door or the wall.
Yeah,
Um, I think about
or
that.
Leroy. I don't know if I ever called you
Lee,
Leroy
oh
Jenkins.
yeah, dude. I
That
used to send you videos of that, Leroy, because I remember one time I think I was at a conference and I was like, there's these kind of like internet Instagram famous dudes here, and everyone's kind of freaking out about them. I was like, I want to say hi, but I don't want to wait. You know, like there's almost a line. I kind of just want to walk past everyone. And you were like Leroy Jenkins. And I was like, yes, like Leroy Jenkins. And I put my phone down and walked past everyone and like pushed someone aside. I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And started slapping hands with them.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, so if we've got about 9 minutes left, what else do we want to cover?
Oh, nothing.
Here's a question.
Okay.
Did you see the clips of the president yesterday?
I watched the whole thing.
Holy cow!
It's weird because I that you can tell that press release thing that he did was staged and like they went out of their way to make it friendly to him. You can tell they handpicked all of the questions, which is not an honest interview, by the way, if you get to handpick your questions.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about. We might be talking about different things, and obviously I really don't follow the news that much. I'm talking about when
The
you
NATO
referred,
summit.
yeah, when you referred to Vice President Trump and President Putin when he was introducing Zelensky, like like these are big deals.
Yeah.
I
He
don't
doesn't
know that.
remember people's names. And it's not only that he doesn't remember their names, he's getting them confused with the opposite, with the bad guy. Um,
Yeah,
it
that seems like a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. I think people say this as like in a dismissive way. I don't mean it in a dismissive way. It seems like elder abuse. It
Yeah.
seems like he doesn't know he shouldn't be doing that. And it seems like from, obviously I'm nowhere connected to that, but it seems like his wife and his son have a really good thing going right now. And especially at first, he was saying, my wife says that I'm good. Like his wife is talking him into staying. There's so many Democratic leaders that have come out. I think it's like 16 today that I saw.
Yeah.
Top Democratic leaders that are coming out and calling for him to resign. And he's like, oh, my son says I'm good. You're crackhead, son? You're crackhead prostitute, human trafficking, son? It was like, hey, dude. it
Yeah.
it it seems like they're taking advantage of him, and he's obviously not in a mental condition to be leading the most. He's not in a mental condition to be the most powerful, important person on the planet.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem qualified to do that right now, and it
Yeah.
seems mean to make him do it. It's definitely
I,
dangerous for all
I
of
do
us.
think I do think there's a level of abuse there and a level of responsibility that somebody, even politics aside and political affiliations aside, for the sake of him as an individual,
Yeah.
as a human being, somebody should step in and just at least stop him from embarrassing himself anymore.
And there's a weird conspiratorial part of my mind because I'm into conspiracies. Uh but like it seems like to me that could be a play. I thought they were going to do this in the first term, but if he's, say whatever happens, he's reelected. I can see them almost immediately after he's reelected, them using the 25th Amendment, which was, by the way, why that amendment was written, the 25th Amendment to get him out
Mm-hmm.
and Kamala be the president, and which would make the Speaker of the House, I think it is, the vice president.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought that was going to happen this term. I thought it was going to happen 2 years ago.
I thought it was going to happen too.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it didn't, but it's definitely the plan now. I was listening to it was on Meet the Nation. There was this guy getting interviewed who's like this longtime political insider, especially in the Democratic Party, and he flat out said he was like, a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. Like we understand now that they're talking about what's going to happen in the Democratic Party going forward. They're like, well, there's different ways of looking at this because they said it's really hard to start from zero. Like they already have fundraisers, they already have all this money raised, they already have this momentum going in the Biden election thing or in his campaign. And his argument was that it's going to be really hard to just put a new person in there. So another way to think about it without getting scared that, we have this guy that we all love, but we're afraid he can't do the job. Another way of looking at it is a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. And that was just so crazy to me.
So why, I mean, other than if they don't think that she could win, and I don't think that she could, why would she not just run? If that's the position, is that, I mean, I guess they don't want to
They
necessarily
don't
admit or
Well, they don't want to force him out. You can tell because I saw another clip on this morning. I think Nancy Pelosi was asked straight out like, should Joe Rogan, Jesus,
he
should
should.
Yeah, should Joe Biden leave the race? And she was like, I want him to do what he wants to do. He needs to talk to people and figure out if this is what he wants to do. And then, so what she's saying, without saying it, is he needs to get out of the race.
Yeah.
But I want it to be his idea. It
Yeah.
seems like it publicly. That's what they're saying. They're like, he needs to get out, but it needs to be his idea. We don't want to dishonor this person that they say is that. That's the thing that surprises me is how much on both sides. I see this on both sides since I'm back from both sides, but especially just because we're talking about it with Biden and this last presidency, they're just ignoring facts from the past 3.5 years. They're like, the economy is the best it's ever been. Hey, dude,
Yeah.
the houses
I
are
don't
most
know.
expensive.
I don't know where you're shopping,
Yeah.
but around here, yeah.
Or, I think it was a senior moment, but it was insulting during the debate. He said he's the only president that hasn't had any soldiers or military members die under his watch. Uh, the 13 Marines and more that died during the botched, embarrassing exit from Afghanistan. People should be talking about Afghanistan, and no one is.
No one is.
Not even Trump, not even them. They're not really talking about Afghanistan. Like, hey, dude, this was the Vietnam of our era,
Yeah.
and there's a big population of the U.S. that's dealing with this still. Veterans and their families and the
Yeah.
workforce. Um, there's a lot of history, just ignoring that's going on right now in these debates, and no one is talking about it.
So, do you like just your honest opinion? Do you think that RFK has a shot?
No, but um, I think if one of them would get out, he would win, and I think he even proved that according to some polls, which is weird to believe. But if Joe Biden would drop out and the Democratic Party made RFK the nominee, I think he'd wipe the floor with Trump. If he had all of the Democrats behind him and RFK's people,
Do you
I
think that
think
he could he I don't know enough about him to know. I know that a lot of people that I like him, so
uh
that makes me interested. Do you think that he could he get Democratic support?
I mean, he's a Kennedy and he is still a Democrat, even though he's running under the independent ticket.
Yeah. But
Um,
is he more politically libertarian? I get the impression he's more libertarian than he is Democrat.
on a lot of things, he definitely has a libertarian vibe to him. He's for gun control, which is not what libertarians are about. And up until I think the last couple of years, he had a very liberal view of abortion, but he says he's changed it. Basically, he said he's anti late term abortion. He
Yeah.
but besides late term abortion, he's woman's choice, which there's merit there. Whatever.
Do you
He
think that good?
Yeah, yeah, I was just gonna say he's not libertarian, but he's very libertarian adjacent.
Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you think that he would actually do what he says, or is this just politics?
that's the
And
big that's the big question because he has lost a lot. Like he's been ostracized from his family, his whole party that was kind of his identity. He's a Kennedy, you know. His whole party kind of turned their back on him. Um, so you'd say that he's already sacrificed a lot. So he seems like the type of person that would follow through on his word, but you never know until they get in.
yeah, and sometimes I wonder, like at least from a local level, and I think it probably applies everywhere. Sometimes I feel like maybe politicians get in with the right motives
Yeah.
and the right intentions and power and money and all of that kind of stuff. And it may not even show itself as power and money. It may show itself as, well, in order to do this good thing, I've got to do this for this person. And then before long, you're just owned by these people and you can no longer support the things that you ran on. I think that's a real possibility. Um, but I just don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if it's the politics that changes people or if they just go into it being flaky. You know what I mean?
Well, I remember this. I remember when and I know we're at our limit, but I remember when Obama was first elected. I first started following politics during Bush Jr.'s term. Is when I first started. I getting in, watching, paying attention to it. And I remember when Obama was first elected because Obama ran on shutting down Iraq and Afghanistan war. Like he was Obama when he was first going from Illinois senator to the presidential run, he was anti-war. And I remember when Obama became president, he obviously didn't shut down any of those wars. And Bush Jr. was interviewed, and they were like, "Why do you think Obama hasn't stopped the wars like he said he was going to?" And George Bush Jr. goes, with that weird crooked smile he's got, is like, well, I knew that as soon as he got behind them closed doors and saw the things, behind the closed doors, that he would know there's no getting out of Iraq. And he smiled, and I was like, what a scary thing to say.
Mm.
What terrifying
Yeah.
news that is.
Yeah. And think of how many people that impacts.
Yeah.
Like that's a it's easy for you to say from the ivory tower. Um,
Whew.
but that's a scary thing.
Yeah. That's scary. So you never know. You never know what they're going to do. I have yet to see a president in my lifetime that does the things they say they were going to do. Trump, I'm the first time I didn't vote for him. I voted Libertarian during that election, but or during both of those elections. But I remember he said he was going to get rid of the NFA, the National Firearms Act, which I'm all about, and the other thing he said, he was going to legalize weed, and I was a cop back then, and I was still all about it. I was like, yes, legalize weed, get rid of the NFA, and just that. And I had faith in him as a businessman. I was like, just that is enough to get my support. And he didn't do any of those. He
Yeah.
didn't legalize weed. He didn't get rid of the NFA. He actually added gun regulations that the Supreme Court just said was unlawful. The bump,
So
bump stock.
I think that's the other important thing to consider is that I don't know that the president has as much power as we think they do.
Yeah.
Um, because you've got uh judges, you've got Supreme Court, you've got Congress, you've got all of these other politicians, and judges shouldn't be politicians, but you've got all these other people that can just strike it down.
Yeah.
Or, listen, so some things,
They definitely interpret their power differently because, like, Trump, say what you will about him. And I've heard people, like, recently, people that I respect say the opposite of like what historically happened. He built at least part of the wall, and he had a secure border. I remember it. Like, we talked about it, how the flood of narcotics kind of slows down because, obviously that border is getting tighter because, whatever, we're not catching the suicide loads that, historically had been on 54. Um, so he thought he could do that, build that secure border. And Biden said that he tore down that wall that Trump built. And he said that the president doesn't have the power to do that. So they obviously interpret their power as different, or their authority.
yeah. Yeah, well, but it could also, it's the same thing as it's the same thing as with the COVID vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
When it was Trump's idea, it was
It was bad.
terrible, it was poison. As soon as he left, now it's our savior. Probably the same thing, that if Biden were securing the border, then it would be humanitarian. It would be the right thing to do. If Trump does it, then it's racist and
Obama had a pretty secure
everything else.
border. Obama was pretty hawkish on his border.
Yeah.
Like, he even made I was listening to it recently on a podcast. They played clips of it. He was like, and obviously we need a secure border. And the Democrats just roared and cheered. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah. And he was like, we're gonna have to make a robust wall. And everyone's like, yeah.
Isn't that just like, doesn't that just make you so frustrated how politics, like, it just, if your guy says it, then it's good. And if the other guy says it, then it's bad. And it's just so dumb.
It should be transparent to everyone. Like, you
You,
should be able to take a step back and be like, hey, did you just fucking hear this? They're
yeah,
playing us. They
but
don't care who.
nobody does. Or
Nobody catches on.
if we do, and I say we because conservatives and libertarians do the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's almost like when I was more evangelical, like, if any celebrity, if any athlete, whatever, gives any indication that they're a Christian or that they're believers or that they're evangelical, then they're one of us and we
Yeah.
support them, regardless of what else they do in their life or what else they say. Hey, this guy might be a Christian. Maybe we can.
Were you a Tim Tebow fan?
Um, no, I was, in the sense uh, that I felt like he was unfairly treated.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
you weren't following him when he was playing at Florida or anything like
no,
that?
no, no. I've never really been into college football. Um, and
I
it,
I I booed at a church service one time. And it was because of Tim Tebow. But I do got to start wrapping it up. But I was at a church service when Tim Tebow was at Florida, and I'm an OU fan, and so,
okay,
like, I'm a big OU fan, like any sports team, whatever. That's my
yeah,
vice.
like OU fans generally are. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is about you guys. You're like Cowboys fans. Um,
Okay.
you know,
Sure.
I'll leave it
But
there.
yeah, I don't think I think anyway. I'm an OU fan. Tim Tebow's Florida beat up OU, and so I think it had might have been like the Sunday after, or no, it was a couple weeks after the Florida Gators had beat OU under Tim Tebow. But Tim Tebow is a Christian, and he put John 3:16 or whatever on his
Yeah,
eyeliner. is on his mascara. And I remember at church service, my preacher was like, "Boy, aren't we so blessed to have athletes like Tim Tebow?" And I was like, "Boo!" Thinking it would get a lot of laughs.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting one for me.
Everyone, my face is turning red. I'm remembering this. This is one of the few times I was actually embarrassed. Everyone in the church stopped, looked at me, and the pastor was like, huh, "Well, anyway, isn't it great that we have him as a believer and as a Christian?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, like I'm the bad guy here."
Yeah, you're looking around for laughs and thumbs up. You're like, what?
Right? Right?
Nobody got
Oh,
it.
I feel hot. I remember that embarrassment that I felt.
Yeah.
All right, dude, I got to get off here.
All right, man. We'll catch you later on.
I'll holler at you.
All right.